ממעמקים קראתי אלייך, בואי אליי בשובך יחזור שוב האור בעיניי, לא גמור לא עוזב המגע בידייך, שיבוא ויעיר למשמע כל צחוקך. ממעמקים קראתי אלייך, בואי אליי מול ירח מאיר את דרכך שוב אליי, נפרסו ונמסו מול מגע של ידייך, באוזנייך לוחש שואל מי זה קורא לך הלילה, הקשיבי מי שר בקול אלייך אל חלומך, מי שם נפשו שתהי מאושרת, מי ישים יד ויבנה את ביתך, מי ייתן חייו ישימה מתחתייך, מי כעפר לרגלייך יחיה, מי אוהבך עוד מכל אוהבייך, מי מכל רוח רעה יצילך, ממעמקים. ממעמקים קראתי אלייך, בואי אליי מול ירח מאיר את דרכך שוב אליי, נפרסו ונמסו מול מגע של ידייך, באוזנייך לוחש.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. We said we'd start promptly at 12:30, so here we are. As people get joined to the webinar, they can see the content, but I know people are busy and it's a Sunday, so let's get right to it. Let me set the stage. From about 40 years ago, the affluent and adventurous of the world flocked to the newly opened diving resort in the Sudan for some rest and relaxation. The fascinating dive sites in the Red Sea created a perfect vacation spot, all the while serving the hidden and primary purpose of a Mossad base established a few months earlier. The Mossad agents were diving instructors by day and covert operatives by night. This was the cover story for one of the greatest and most heroic operations in the history of the Mossad, the operation to extract Ethiopian Jews in the early 1980s. This operation required the agents to adopt cover identities for years while performing daring nocturnal operations and living under endless tension. In the morning, the agents served the guests at their resort, taking them out for magical dives, and later organizing dinner parties for their entertainment. Under the cover of nightfall, they would go out on covert operations under the noses of the Sudanese army on their way to the heart of the desert to extract more and more Ethiopian Jews by sea and later by air. In the first iteration, the Mossad fighters rendezvoused with Israel flotilla soldiers and would load the Ethiopians on ships en route to Israel. Further along the operation, they utilized Hercules aircrafts, which landed in the middle of the night in the desert and then transported hundreds of Jews on their way to Jerusalem. With us today is Dany Limor, the Israeli hero and the commander of this operation. The film, the Netflix film, The Red Sea Diving Resort, is based on Dany's work in the Sudan over the past 5 years. Dany is also a volunteer on the board of Tech Career, and this week he received the prestigious award named after Yossi Harel for bringing Ethiopian Jews to Israel. Keep in mind, you'll be able to ask Mr. Limor questions in the chat. Thank you. Mr. Limor, how are you?
Yes.
May I call you Dany?
I'm okay, yeah. Yeah, sure, you can call me Dany.
Excellent. Well, firstly, I want to thank you for your tremendous service to the state of Israel, as well as Am Yisrael. Your work in the Sudan truly changed the landscape of Aliyah to Israel over the last 40 years. So let's get right to it. It was quite an amazing story, and the Netflix film about the experience was very detailed, but I want to get into a few of the more granular details. So tell me, why would they extract through Sudan and why not through Ethiopia directly?
Well, that's quite a long explanation, but first, let me just one remark about the film.
Sure.
It was a nice film. I mean, I even was a few weeks on the set. Was filmed in Namibia in Southwest Africa, but it was not really how it happened. There were some scenes are close to the reality, but most of it was very Hollywood. For example, the participation of the CIA. CIA did not participate in this operation. But for the sake of the American public, it was added. Now, to answer your question, we tried first when we received instructions from the Prime Minister. We first tried to do it from Ethiopia, and I went to Ethiopia twice to try and do some feasibility study. What I found out in both trips, one was to the north, to the Tigray province. The other one was to the area of Gondar, Lake Tana. What I found out is that the situation in Ethiopia at the time was, anarchic. It was a total chaos. It was like, where people shooting at each other, all kind of liberation movements, Eritrean, Tigrayan, just bandits. It was a very dangerous area, and we did not have enough information to take people, civilians, old men and women and pregnant women and small children from very remote places in Ethiopia, because the Jews were not living in concentrated areas. There were two big areas, but there were lots of other settlements. And, after we finished, we understood that they lived in 400 different settlements. So,
wow.
So the whole thing happened in Sudan because there was a massive movement of refugees going from Ethiopia, Eritrea, and the whole Horn of Africa into the Sudan, because the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees had built some refugee camps. And among those refugees, there were a few Jews. One of them, his name was Ferdi Aklum. God rest his soul, he's not longer with us for more than 10 years, but he was a known young leader of the community. He was a teacher, and he arrived to Khartoum and managed to send a message to a Jewish organization in Europe saying that he was in Khartoum, giving the number of a PO box in the central post of Khartoum and asking for a ticket, air ticket to get to Europe, and from Europe to Israel. And the idea was, if we thought that maybe because he managed to somehow reach Khartoum coming from Ethiopia, the idea was to send me there to meet him, to try and understand how he did it. Instead of sending him a ticket, by the way, we sent him a message telling him, wait, someone is coming. He never got it. So probably if we would have sent a ticket, he probably wouldn't have got it.
Never received it either. Okay, so it makes sense why you chose Sudan and not Ethiopia.
I went there, got in touch with him, and the rest is history.
Wow. And where is the diving resort actually located today? Like, can you point it on explain on a map where on the eastern coast of Sudan it is?
It's exactly 70 kilometers. That's what, 50 miles north of the second largest city in Sudan, Port Sudan, which is the harbor. But we started to evacuate Jews from the camps and to Europe and then to Israel 1.5 years before we found the village and started operating in.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And now, what was the path to get from the refugee camps to Bat Galim, and what was the most dangerous section along the way?
Well, look, it was a very, very long journey. We used to live, we were operating this resort. So my team were at the same time, during the day, they were diving instructors for tourists that came, even from Europe and even from America. And at night, we used to go to drive all night, and the day after, 900 kilometers, that's about 700 miles. We took the vehicles, the lorries, the trucks, and the 4x4 vehicles from Arus, from the village, up to the city called Gedaref. The camps were around this city. So we used to arrive there on the evening of the day after. I mean, we left late at night, traveled during the night, rest a little bit, and arrived just before dark to a meeting place where I used to meet the delegates of a committee, which was the one with whom we were coordinating the number of people that we would take and the place where we would pick them up. So the whole thing was not easy because those that were elected by the committee, committee who was made of elder Ethiopian Jews, they had to leave the camps after dark very discreetly, because the neighbors who were not Jewish were aware and were very sensible to the fact that the Jews were disappearing from the camp. They woke up in the morning and they saw that several huts and tents were empty because a group of 150 or sometimes 200 people would leave. So this going from the camp to the meeting place with us, it was led by young Ethiopian Jews that were responsible, and they would have made a reconnaissance of the way that they would go during the night in order to avoid patrols, army patrols, police patrols, and all kinds of things. So then they had to walk 3, 4, 5 miles sometimes in total silence, and we're talking babies and and this was a very delicate part of the operation. Then they would meet us and we would start the journey back, and we would arrive after driving all night into a place that where we would hide during the day, because we operated only by night. Because of army checkpoints all along the road. There were army checkpoints, and we could not allow ourselves to be stopped by an army checkpoint because they would immediately discover what was going on, and so we did it only by night, and sometimes we had to clash with those checkpoints, but it was easier in the darkness. So during the day we would hide, and we would feed and give and give water to the whole group that was under our responsibility, because they had been traveling themselves all night without stopping, without drinking, without eating, and so they could eat and drink, and then we would brief them about what was going to happen the next night, because that was not something that was easy for them. Several reasons. First of all, they never had been in the sea, so they knew only fresh water from lakes and rivers.
Oh, so you're afraid they would try to drink salt water by accident?
First of all, yes, and secondly, the sea can be frightening. You know, if you go in the Red Sea, sometimes when it can have very high waves, and it's frightening. And then you see those guys from the the Israeli SEALs get out of the water in silence with all their gear on them. It's frightening even for me. I used to be an officer in the paratroopers and work with them. It's still, when you see them coming out of the water. So we had to prepare them, and also to the trip on the rubber boats from the beach up to the Bat Galim, sometimes it could take between 2 and 3 hours. And that's also not easy for people who never were on a small boat like this. So that's the
small
story.
Zodiacs. Actually, so it's a great segue to my next question. What happened the night that shots were fired at the Bat Galim? Can you tell us about that?
One second, please. Sorry.
That's okay.
What happened? First of all, that was the first few operations went very smoothly with no encounters. We usually, before I reached the beach with my convoy of vehicles, and before the SEALs reached the beach to meet us, I would send one of my guys, one of my team, to reconnoiter the place to make sure that there were no Bedouins, no smugglers, and no uninvited guests to that party. And that included looking for army patrols and so on. Because this area was patrolled quite regularly by vehicles of the Sudanese army. First of all, because it's a very long coast and very open, anyone can actually come. So they would make, but we usually, we could see them because they travel with full lights and so on. Well, that was one operation that was involving about 180 Ethiopian Jews, men, women, old men, and children, and there were 32 combatants from the SEALs with 16 rubber boats. That's Zodiacs.
Yeah.
Mark V, and about 10 Mossad people, my team, and all of us were on the beach. And I had one guy on a hill looking, looking to prevent any unexpected guests, essentially military. And in the middle of the operation, when we were, the boats were, half of them were already with people on them. He told me that he could see, he had night vision equipment. He could see some soldiers approaching. It's a long story, I'll make it short. There were 4, then we decided, I spoke to the commander of the SEAL team, and we decided to make everything, to accelerate everything. We had a plan to do it in two turns of 8 boats each. We decided to do all the boats together, and many things that we used to do on the beach before embarking, like counting the making sure that everyone has a safety belt and so on. We decided to do it on the after they are already far from the beach, but still the one boat was stuck, charged, and was very difficult to push it back to the water. And so one of the soldiers started running and towards the boat, and there was some fighting, fist fighting developed between him and me. And then he arrived to the beach and he shot in the direction of the boats that were already on the water. I couldn't know if someone was hurt or no, but I jumped on him and he stopped firing. And then we saw a full, actually a company of Sudanese soldiers coming out of the dark. So part of my team was with the SEALs and part of them were hiding and part was with me. And well, there was a big discussion between me and the leader of the Sudanese about being arrested, not being arrested. And I was name dropping people that I knew in the Sudanese military. But to cut a long story short, we managed to solve the problem. I even got an apology written by the chief of the Sudanese Navy, because we were in very good terms. And so we could, even after that, we continued using the resort as a cover, but we stopped for a while Navy operations, and we began
using the Hercules airplanes.
Landing Hercules airplanes first on a known runway that the Air Force discovered, which was quite near to the coast. And after this was discovered by the Sudanese, and we learned about it, we started landing planes deep inside Sudanese airspace territory, about 500 miles inside, in the desert.
Actually, that's my next question. What were sorry to interrupt you. What were the benefits of using the airplanes versus the Navy ships? And how did you prepare these tracks deep in the deserts to get to the airfield?
There were many because, well, first of all, we had to undergo a training on how to prepare a landing place, which is not to prepare. You have to check it. You have to check the thickness of the land. So there's a special measure that you need to take in order to land such a heavy plane without it getting stuck in the sand. So we had we had special equipment for that. We were trained by the Air Force in Israel how to do it. Took some time. And when we were approved by the Air Force, which was very rare at the time, they never trusted anybody except themselves, but they had no choice. So once they considered that we were ready, we started doing it. And the advantages for us were many. First of all, they covered by air most of the distance that we had to transport the people. When we would meet with those who were leaving, as I told you before, the same system with the young Ethiopian Jews that were bringing us the people that were leaving that night, and then the distance to the landing strip, which was, we would go on the highway. There was only one checkpoint instead of 10 or 12. And then we would turn into the desert and travel, I don't know, 20, 30 kilometers to the place that we checked the day before that was going to be the landing, because we could not land the plane anywhere else than the place that we checked and marked. And so, and then we entered into radio contact with a pilot. And this was very, we had to respect the timetable because the plane, once he took off from Israel, he could not wait for us.
Yeah.
He had to come to land, to pick up the people. Usually it will take between 10 and 15 minutes, the whole operation, landing, taxiing, opening the ramp behind, getting all the people inside. We had briefed the people because that also is a very frightening situation when you have this big, enormous bird without lights landing, creating noise, creating a cloud of dust. And then you had soldiers that would come with green stick lights and would show them how to enter the plane because the engines were working. So we had to avoid them going in the direction of the engines. So these soldiers would signal them. But, to someone who never saw a plane in his life. And
I can imagine it was frightening for them.
I remember a guy telling me years later in a wedding or something, you remember that night, there were many nights, but he remembered his night. And he said, for us, it looked like a monster that is opening a mouth with green teeth. And you are telling us to get into that place.
I can't imagine what it was like for them.
But they did because they trusted us completely. So less distance, more people that we could evacuate, because a plane like that could take between 180 and 200, depending on the number of children in the group. So it accelerated the evacuation.
Wow. And what was the backup plan if the plane was stuck or got injured in the Sudan? How would you deal with that?
Well, first of all, it would come rigged with explosives because, you cannot push a plane if it gets stuck in the sand.
True.
And so the crew would come under our protection, and then the plane would be, totally destroyed in order not to leave any signs that an Israeli plane was there. But it never happened. And then we would take the team, evacuate them through the Egyptian border into Egypt, and then they would go for a nice weekend in some resort.
In Sinai. So it was 4 to 5
Never
years
happened.
you spent?
So,
sorry, it was 4 to 5 years you spent there in total?
Almost 5 years, yes. From January 79 to October 83.
Wow. Were there any other close
Not all
calls?
the time. I was
Back
not
and
there
forth,
all the
yeah.
time, yeah. Of course.
Were there any other close calls you had with military or with different populations or with militia?
We were shot at in the period before the resort. We took people from that city, that area of camps, Gedaref, to the capital, where we would hide them in houses that we rented beforehand, houses with fences, high fences. And then, so we had to pass about 10 checkpoints, military checkpoints on the way. And it happened that we didn't stop, so they shot at us. But usually we would arrive by surprise to the checkpoint, so without lights, then suddenly, putting in the lights and then accelerating to surprise the soldiers. So they would shoot, but
Miss,
we never,
primarily.
yeah. And well, I spent time in prison with Faraday. We were arrested, interrogated. In another occasion, we were ambushed by the Secret Service, and there is a book that you can read called "Red Sea Spies," by a British author called Rafi Berg.
Okay.
And he did a very thorough research about what happened. He interviewed people from the army, from the navy, from the air force, from us, Ethiopian Jews. And it's a very interesting book because the first part of it is the history of the Ethiopian Jewish community. And so it's a very thorough book. And I can quote Ephraim Halevi, who was my direct commander during those operations, and then he became also chief of the Mossad. And he said about this book that this is the most accurate reporting about this operation. Yeah.
So 2 last questions, and I appreciate your time. I know you're busy and you're actually at a graduation of sorts right now. Did you encounter any pushback from any Israeli government officials at the time, or people who weren't happy with the operation, or was everyone in support from the prime minister down?
First of all, the prime minister, both Begin and Shamir, were very, very concerned by the success of this operation. They were really concerned, not because they were prime minister. I believe these 2 people, they acted because they thought that this was all about the Zionist dream or the Zionist entity. I mean, if you don't reach and to bring all your brothers and sisters from wherever they are that need to come, what is the purpose of this, state of Israel? Of course, there were people, when you do something, first of all, you do mistakes. And I did mistakes. And I do, the situation was that many decisions had to be made on the spot, because the communications with headquarters were very, very primitive, I could not speak frequently or openly to ask for advice or to ask for, we had to make decisions. And sometimes you make decisions and you're wrong. But anytime, anyway, whatever I did, I was always backed by Ephraim and by the chief of the Mossad at the time, Yitzhak Hofi, and then Nahum Admoni. Both were really, I had the feeling and I knew that whatever, if I take a decision, if I do something, even if they will not hang me. They would, you have to be
support you as well.
You have to be responsible for your acts and for your decisions. But it's easier to work when you're not, afraid that, if I decide like this, they will do something or whatever.
That's good. My last question, why did you get involved with Tech Career? And just give us a quick, summary of the program and why it's important to you.
First of all, there are 2 reasons. The first reason is that since my retirement from office, I did a few things that were not concerning the Ethiopian community, but about more than 30 years ago, I decided that that my mission was not finished. First of all, I was not alone, but many others were involved in these operations. My time, it was called Operation Brothers. Then there was Operation Moses, Operation Solomon. So, people did what they had to do, or because this was their mission. And most of them thought, maybe, I can understand why. Okay, we brought them. Now we go do something else. And I did it too for a while. But then I said to myself, this is not finished. The fact that they are here is, for them, it's much I came to Israel as an immigrant when I was 16, and I was without my parents. I mean, I came as a young man, and I was in boarding schools and so on. And it was not easy. I didn't speak the language and so on. But me, I look like everyone else. For them, the integration is very difficult because the Israelis are intolerant people. I'm sorry, but we are intolerant people. We are always, under pressure. So it's difficult for us to accept people that for some, it could look like they become a burden for the society, which is not true, of course. And all the waves of immigration that came to Israel from the 1950s, from all over the world, the Islamic world, the Christian world, all of them could be considered as a burden. Nobody came here as a professor of astrophysics, okay? Maybe Einstein was candidate to be president of the State of Israel. But look, if we are concerned about these people, then we have to be involved in their integration. So I looked for all kinds of things to do, and I found, of course, you can always find something to do. And then I met a guy whose name is Turkel, whom I used to know in Sudan when he was himself 16.
Wow.
And I told you about these young people that would lead the immigrants that we had to take in a specific night, either to the sea or to the landing place. He was one of those. And he volunteered to stay. He could have left, he could have come with one of the operations and be in Israel much earlier, but he chose, like others. These young men, without them, nothing would have happened. We could not go look for them at the camps. We could not
get them together and mobilize them, and
we would have compromised the whole operation, because as white men, without being United Nations people, if we enter the camp, immediately were suspects, and anyone who's talking to us is a suspect. So they did the most delicate part of the operation, and then I retired, and he came to Israel. We met in a wedding again. Well, I was invited, and he came to me. You remember me? Of course, I remembered him. But I don't know, maybe 15 years had already passed, and I met. I knew a lot of people. I could not look for everyone. And anyway, from the moment we met, again, we did not separate. Then I went to work in a college, in an academy, and he was there. We worked together on social project and so on and so on. And then when he became CEO of Tech Career, he invited me to the board. And I said, well, for me, it's like realizing a dream to see Turkel, the guy who I met him in his refugee camp when he was 16, looking at him as CEO of a really fantastic school. By the way, it was founded by one of the Ethiopian Jews that studied computer science and so on. He founded that school about 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's actually, this is a product of this aliyah, of this immigration from Ethiopia, from A to Z, to Z. And now I humbly, really, I feel that it's like a dream come true, because I always tell them, look, the sky is the limit. You can do everything. And they do. And Turkel is one very good example. There are others. So this
perfect.
is and it's a revolution. It's a revolution, because all those young men and women that come to the career after the military service, 90% of them actually work in high-tech companies. We have hundreds of graduates working in high-tech companies. That's a total revolution, you know, in the Ethiopian Jewish community and in Israel in general.
Well, that sums it up, and it makes sense. And I'm sure you seeing it full circle from the extraction to their absorption and now success is, I'm sure it makes you feel great inside. So an excellent segue. We have Michal, who is a graduate from
Yes.
the program from Tech Career, and she's going to join us as well and talk about her experience. Let me give a quick introduction. Michal Aimelek was born and raised in Bat Yam, Israel. She graduated from Tech Career in 2014 and then completed her BS in computer science. She's an enthusiastic and accomplished technology professional who has spent the majority of her career as a software developer and is currently a developer at Taylor Brands. Thank you for joining us, Michal. Tell us about your tech career journey and why you choose to still volunteer with this organization today.
Hi, I'm glad to be here today with you. Thank you for inviting me. So I will start by saying I am my background. My parents, I was born and raised in Bat Yam in center of Israel. My parents made Aliyah in 1984 from Sudan in a Moses operation. We are 4 siblings. My older brother, he's an investment accountant in Israeli assurance company. Myself, my little sister, she's a computer science student right now, and my little brother, he is a soldier right now. I was in high school. I study a little bit of background. I study Arabic and biology. I served in the intelligence unit in Jerusalem. After that, I like a regular Israeli, young Israeli. I did my travel after service, and I choose America to do it. I've been there for 1 year. I worked as the au pair in Princeton in a Jewish family. I get to know the community. I practiced my English at Princeton University, and I made relationships. And when I returned to Israel, I was in injection. I didn't know what to study. I was 22 at that time. I didn't know what I should study. I had good grades, but still I didn't know. One friend of our family suggested me a tech career. It said that I should learn there and to Google it. So I did my small research, and I did the exam. I met the wonderful team of the career, and I started my journey there. Maybe when I speak about it and I mark it like that, it could seem very easy, but from someone who didn't know anything about computer, it's crazy to start it and learning programming. I had just my English skill and math skills, but no more. And that's exactly what tech career it does. They get you from beginning being clueless in programming, in computer at all, and make you land your first job. I can speak with you and share with you my how my career developed since then, but it's more important for me to let you know what is tech career, what tech career does to me. It's not just a regular institute. I mean, they get you the best syllabus. The material is always updated to the relevant industry requirement, but it's much more for me and for the students. Take Career provides you the whole infrastructure for being for Ethiopian Israeli student to succeed. It's much more. I today, after years when I'm in the industry, I know boot camps and other programs that do kind of this job, but it's way more. I mean, it's not just the relevant material. They provide you the boarding. I have a difficulties. Boarding school conditions for free. They give you small stipend for you. They give you equipment, basic equipment like laptop and stuff for you to use in that in your program 1 year or other. They give you a career and development courses, and important from that is the job placement. I can tell you that from the mentorship, through the mentorship program that Take Career provides, I met my mentor, my first mentor. She worked at Wix at that time, and we connected and we have good relationship. And I met through her the organization She Code, who I volunteered for, and other women technology women communities that became part of my life. Take Career is not just for the students. They are with you through whole your career. They have expanded alumni communities. They give you opportunities through your career. 2 years ago, I participated in entrepreneurship program in Boston, in Brandeis University, with MIT collaboration. And Abigail from Take Career suggested me and encouraged me, to be honest, to apply to that program. It wouldn't be happen without Take Career. I was the first Ethiopian in the whole course to participate in a program like that. So
it's impressive. It's very impressive.
So this is exactly what I want to notice, that Take Career is through whole your career. But also, I think important to let you know that you speak right now with me, Michal, and I'm aware of the fact that I'm considered privileged Ethiopian Israeli, because I came from my family didn't came with a lot of money, but they came or study oriented. They came with good background, and having said that, I know that I will not study computer science, and I will not complete my degree in computer science with no Take Career. What do I mean? Maybe I will study other major, law or other field that I really respect, but not Take Career, but no computer science. And computer science today, mostly in Israel, is not just economical side. Is a status profile.
Yeah.
This is exactly what Take Career tried to change. That people like me and alumni like me would create a different reality 5 or 6 years after they finished. They took young after in their 20s and changed their whole life with that program. So that was important for me to let you notice. I know that I'm proud to say today that I encourage other women, also men, but other women to study computer science and not to be afraid anymore. Because remember what I told you before, that I had great grades, but it wasn't even in my back of my mind to study computer science. And Tech Career does exactly that.
Wow. I think you said it all, Mossad. It's impressive. And you're saying now, 7 years since you graduated, you're still involved in the alumni council for Tech Career, but are you also mentoring other students who are going through the program?
Yes, exactly. I also, not just Tech Career, of course, Tech Career is number one, but they give you also values for you to notice where you should help others, and to be a social leader also.
Well, that's tremendous. I see that it's made you a very articulate and well-rounded person. I'm sure it's between your Brandeis experience and your Princeton experience and the mentor you had there, it's no reason why you're here, and we're very happy to have you. I wanted to open the floor to questions because we only have about 5-10 minutes left here. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat while I ask a few more questions to Michal, and then we'll wrap this thing up. What can we do as Americans who are learning about Tech Career? How can we support the organization? What's most needed at this point in time?
I think we have a great team at Tech Career that do all that stuff. They provide a great programs for the young, and for this we need also a good mentors and yes, a resource also, because Tech Career is not is now is not founded by the government, and
non-profit organization.
Yes, and is not profit, and we help as a volunteer. We help as a volunteer, but we are just started our journey, and we would like to have good people as a mentor, as in our next to us to help us.
Perfect. Well, I think we answered everyone's questions in the conversation, so we'll let you all go. Dany, I appreciate your time. Michal, thank you for everything. We'll be reaching out to other people to spread the word about Tech Career. I personally think it's a very important initiative. Knowing and meeting many Ethiopian Israelis, I know how hard it is to make a mark in the community, and Israel is a very competitive space to begin with. So I think what you both are doing is to be applauded, and I'm grateful and appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Right, have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.
شبعنا غير لجي يمتامر صونات صام لجن يم لجن تقابو يلونال يتسكلون من يورد لنا نانو نانو ناي نانو نانو ناي كانتالي غداي نانو نانو ناي نانو نانو ناي كانتالي غداي
ממעמקים קראתי אלייך, בואי אליי בשובך, יחזור שוב האור בעיניי, לא גמור לא עוזב המגע בידייך, שיבוא ויעיר למשמע כל צחוקך.
no na kantale godai na no na no na kantale godai
ממעמקים קראתי אלייך, אוי אליי מול ירח מאיר דרכך שוב אליי, נפרסו ונמסו מול מגע של ידייך, באוזנייך לוחש שואל מי זה קורא לך הלילה, הקשיבי מי שר בקול אלייך אל חלומך, מי שם נפשו שתהי מאושרת, מי ישים יד ויבנה את ביתך, מי ייתן חייו ישימה מתחתייך, מי כעפר לרגלייך יחיה, מי אוהבך עוד מכל אוהבייך, מי מכל רוח רעה יצילך, ממעמקים ממעמקים קראתי אלייך, בואי אליי מול ירח מאיר דרכך שוב אליי, נפרסו ונמסו מול מגע של ידייך, באוזנייך לוחש